Paul Keating dubbed his recession the recession we had to have. What's this recession?
Well, this recession, is so distressing and devastating results yesterday. I think we can always talk about the numbers, the sharpest quarterly contraction on record, the deepest recession since the Great Depression. But I think for individuals who've been affected by it, who are feeling it day by day, it's a really distressing time, and it's really serious, and we need to make sure that the government is doing everything they can to outline a plan to save jobs, to get people back to work who are unemployed, and to help people make ends meet, put food on the table, because there's a very human impact, when you go through a recession. And I think people have been living and breathing this for some months now.
The government has already spoken about bringing forward these income tax cuts. We're not sure exact timing, but phase 3 would be interesting. If that's brought forward to take effect before the next election, what will Labor's response be?
Well, I think what we're asking of the government is to come forward with a plan. We have engaged with the government on some of the measures that they've introduced. In fact, all of the measures they've introduced since the COVID pandemic came. We've been constructive, we've worked in the national interest, and that's the approach we would bring to any future proposal from the government. I think the problem is we haven't got a proposal before us on any level. We don't have a jobs plan. We don't know where they're going. We can sort of pick up things from press conferences and things like that, but there's not a sense of urgency that I'm picking up from the government about how they are going to deal with the deepest recession that we have seen since the Great Depression. And, we would want to see some urgency attached to that. But Labor has done the right thing. We've worked in the national interest, not necessarily about politics at all. It's been about what's the right thing to do to support people right across this country.
So on the stage 3, though, do you concede it's going to be harder for Labor to oppose that or even talk about rolling it back if it's already legislated rather than off in the distance by the time we go to the next election?
Well, it's impossible. Who knows what they're going to do? I mean, we don't know. We don't have a proposal. They haven't come to us saying they want to bring forward stage 2, let alone stage 3. What I'm saying to you is we will work through whatever proposal they bring, and we will assess it in the national interest. Is it going to create jobs?
Okay,
is it going to support the economy? I mean, that's the approach we've taken with every measure that's been put forward to us, but we haven't got a proposal.
So let me ask you this about stage 3, because we do know what stage 3 entails. Does Labor still have an inherent issue with fairness to do with stage 3?
We certainly raised that at the time. Again, this is something that our caucus will consider if the government brings forward a proposal, which they haven't done. And we would want to assess it in light of the economic circumstances that we face right now. When we had the debate about stage 2 and stage 3, we were in a very different environment than we are now. And the economic priorities of jobs growth, getting the economy going, making sure people can make ends meet, is the end result of the economic crisis around the pandemic, is a very different world. But, I'm not going to sit here and say, yes, we'll endorse it, or no, we won't. We haven't got a proposal from the government.
No, but I'm just asking about that fairness aspect. That was something Labor raised very early on. Are you saying the equation might have changed, and how so?
Well, we will assess it, of course, from a fairness point of view. What the right thing to do is, we'll also, every dollar spent going forward is going to be a dollar borrowed. So we want to make sure that you get bang for the buck. We've got huge amounts of debt being incurred. We need to understand what the outcome is from this borrowed money. If you're going to use it this way, we want to understand what the practical implication of that will be, and we will engage in that constructively. We will. We want to make sure that everything that can be being done to keep people out of the unemployment lines and get businesses growing and economic activity happening is being done, and we will engage proactively and constructively with the government on that.
So on that fairness question then, if, for example, there's a pledge to increase Newstart, that could address Labor's fairness issue, given where that money would be distributed compared to stage 3 of the income tax cut?
Well, on New Start, we've been arguing for some time about a permanent increase. We think there needs to be a permanent increase to New Start. We think the government's got all the information available to it about what the appropriate level should be, and we think there should be one. You know, the government's keeping people hanging. They're essentially saying that things are going to snap back to $40 a day in December. We don't think that's the right approach. In light of the results we saw yesterday, you know, we think they should be reassessing around some of the reductions in the entitlement, in the Corona supplement that they're going to put in place from the end of September. You know, we think the government should be responding to the economic circumstances of the time. They've got the powers to do that. The Parliament's given them the powers to do that. And they should be doing the right thing by the 1.5 million Australians who are currently receiving income support through the Corona supplement or youth allowance.
Will Labor put a figure on how much New Start should increase by before the next election?
Well, I mean, again, it's hard to see. We want the government to put a permanent increase to New Start now, you know, and if...
I know, but you've called that for a long time, and last election you'd said you'd look into it, and again, you didn't win that election. I'm just wondering whether you think before the next election you just say, well, let's put a number on it. We've seen what it's like with double. Labor's already said it won't be double, it'll be less than that, but more than the current figure. I mean, aren't we inching towards being able to say, here's what it should be?
Well, look, if the government does the right thing and puts in place a reasonable and adequate increase to New Start before the election, we won't need to do that. If they don't do that, obviously we will outline a policy before the election. But, you know, these are matters that the government should be dealing with now. We've got the situation they're saying we go back to $40 a day in December. We don't think that's reasonable. They should put a permanent increase in place, and that's what we're calling on them to do. They're the government, they're in charge, and they know that there's 1.5 million Australians who need to know that answer by December, because that's how many will be on these income support payments at the end of the year. All
right. Just finally, Labor's going to move a censure motion against Richard Colbeck today in the Senate. Is this just going to be Labor pursuing him every day, no matter what, or will you give him some time to improve in the role?
Oh, we've been holding him to account through this parliamentary session. We'll continue to do that. The censure is an important way of showing him that we think he's failed in his job, and we'll be arguing that before the Senate, and hopefully the Senate will censure this minister because we think he has failed. You know, hundreds of lives have been lost and the aged care system is broken, and he's been in charge of it.
Katy Gallagher, appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.